When I got to the office on Monday, Dan said, "He want to take a couple days off in Florida?" Elliot Rogers seemed to need a little encouragement with all the turmoil of the last couple months. Since Dan and I were co-owners of our firm, we usually didn't travel to clients anymore. We needed young, eager subordinates to do that. Elliot Rogers and his wife had been with us for over 15 years and had invested almost $100 million, so they were given special attention. I don't mind. In fact, it's a very good time. The kids have gone off to college, and Carrie's gone to a friend's house in Nashville for a week. So of course I'm going to go comfort him. On the plus side, for me, it was a chance to see my Uncle Tony. He was almost 80 now, lived right on a picturesque creek an hour north of Miami, and was as interesting a man as ever. I went home, packed a bag for a couple of days, went to the airport, and by 3:30 I was sitting with Tony on the balcony of his apartment, drinking beer and listening to the same old stories I had enjoyed as a kid. Every time a boat went by, he would shut up and pick up his binoculars. "You gonna finish that story or what, Tony? The guy at the bar jumped on you." He grinned, not taking the binoculars from his eyes. "Hang in there, my young friend. At my age, it's not often a guy gets to see naked tits." He handed me the binoculars, and to my amazement, I saw 3 teenage girls and a guy waving from a small sailboat. All the girls were grinning and topless. Tony took the binoculars back. "See what I mean?" He gave a satisfied cackle. We shared family stories and drank a few more beers until I started thinking about dinner, maybe a couple of steaks at a place Tony liked around the corner. He picked up the binoculars again, looked at the pale blue boat, focused carefully, and just stared. "3 A-team," he said. "Holy shit," and handed the binoculars to me. It was about a 10-meter boat called My Blue Angel, gently drifting downstream. On the cushions in the cockpit, there was a stocky, short-haired guy, about 30 or so, and he had a beautiful brunette, obviously a little older, who was riding him vigorously with her head thrown back and her breasts thrown up vigorously. On her right shoulder, she had a large tattoo in the form of a Chinese character. You may wonder why I paid attention to the name of a boat or a tattoo on a naked woman. The explanation is simple enough. It was my wife, Carrie. Without saying a word, I handed the binoculars back to my uncle and listened to his comments until the couple disappeared from sight around the corner. When they disappeared, he lowered the binoculars and said, "Hi, what a sight that was. I see couples doing that from time to time, Jack, but I'll tell you, that lady was hot. If I was 20 years younger—" "More like 50, I'd say." I smiled at him. I was very upset, but I wasn't going to talk to Tony about it. We went to get our steaks, and then I brought Tony home, and he went to bed. I was in my hotel room by 9:30, and I had a lot to think about. You'd think I'd be destroyed, but I wasn't. Carrie and I were married for about 12 years. She was a great stepmother to my 2 children. My first wife was killed in a railroad accident, and a very good wife to me. I loved and appreciated her, and I knew she loved me. And yet, it somehow didn't shock me that she was cheating on me. Carrie had always been a restless person. She never liked doing one thing for long. During our marriage, she had 5 different jobs. She had many hobbies, from knitting to country dancing to horseback riding, and she just never wanted to sit still. Carrie and I had a sex life, which I enjoyed. She was as interested in sex as I was, of course, and had no problem grabbing me by the toolbox from time to time and dragging me into the bedroom. Sometimes we had gentle, even casual sex of married seniors, but sometimes she had the hell out of me. In fact, I reflected, one of her favorite positions for hardcore sex was riding me, just like she rode that guy on the boat. Even exhibitionism, in a way, fit. Carrie had tried several times to get me to fuck her in public. We tried on a park bench, a couple times in the back seat of my car, but I put a stop to all that. I didn't want my name in the papers. To put it bluntly, I wasn't crushed. I was angry, I was hurt, but I didn't see my marriage necessarily falling apart over it. I didn't think Carrie meant to humiliate me. She didn't know where Uncle Tony lived, and she certainly didn't suspect that I'd be looking at the river that day. But 2 things were quite clear to me. I was going to find out a lot more about what was going on, and I was going to sleep with Stephanie Prince. For the sake of it, I called Marjorie Bales in Nashville, where Carrie was to spend a week. She seemed surprised by my call and a little wary. I'm sorry to bother you, Marjorie, but Carrie's cell phone doesn't seem to be working and I can't get through. Could you get her for a minute? Oh, I'm sorry, Jack. She's in the shower. Can I have her call you back? We talked on the phone, and I smiled to myself. As I expected, Marjorie was covering for her old friend. I wondered how many of Carrie's previous trips to Nashville had actually been vacations with one or another of her friends. Carrie called me on my cell phone about 45 minutes later, quite a long shower, and we had a friendly chat. I told her I was on my way to a client meeting, but I didn't mention where I was. Before we hung up, she told me that she loved me, missed me, and would see me on Saturday. The thing is, I believed her. She really did love me. I didn't think the affair was to get out of our marriage or to outplay me. I figured my troubled wife just wasn't well suited to a monogamous life. After meeting Elliot Rogers the next morning, I spent half an hour with Thomas Giardino, a private detective. I told him all about the short-haired guy from my Blue Angel, let him copy my wife's picture, and left him a sizable check. He doesn't need to break in, I told him, and I don't need compromising photos. Just be careful to find out what's going on. She stayed with him, or was it a chance encounter? Who is this guy? Where is he from? And what does he do for a living? I want to try to find out how they met and how long they've been doing this. Before I got on the plane back to Charlotte, I called Stephanie Prince. Hi, this is the man of your dreams. Are you free for dinner tonight? Yeah, I'm serious. Carrie's out of town and I want to take you to dinner. How do you like Fig Tree? It's fantastic. I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. And listen, wear something worthy of that beautiful body. I want every man in the restaurant to hate my guts tonight. I laughed and hung up. 3A team called the Fig Tree and made a reservation. Stephanie Prince was a tall, very hot, red-headed woman of about 32X, who lived 3 blocks from Carrie and me. She sold real estate, knew almost everyone in town, dated a lot, and for some unknown reason was attracted to me, even though I was a pretty average guy of 41. 3 or 4 years earlier, after we had met at a few neighborhood parties, she had made me a serious proposal. We were having lunch downtown, and she said, "Jack, would you do me a favor?" "Sure," I said. "Give me a name." "I've been going through a hell of a time lately. Could you take a couple hours off today and brainwash me?" When I finished picking up my jaw from the table, we talked about it. If I was considering cheating on my wife with anyone, it would be Stephanie, and I told her so, but I took my marriage vows seriously. "I know you're happily married, Jack, and I'm not trying to break you up with Carrie. I'm not looking for a husband or even a magical romance. I like sex, and I like you. If you want to lay on the bed with me 1 or more times, just say the word." I let her go, but I didn't thank her for the flattering offer. I hadn't forgotten about it either, though it wasn't until I saw Carrie jumping on that guy's instrument that I thought I'd do something about it someday. The steelhead trout at Fig Tree was the best I've ever tasted, but it paled in comparison to my night in Stephanie Prince's bed. She was passionate, experienced, and indefatigable. I still don't know why she found me attractive, but she freaking loved having me until I couldn't get up anymore. And at least part of the time, Carrie wasn't out of my mind. Though, as Stephanie rode me like a galloping bronco and pulled my arms to squeeze her beautiful breasts, I couldn't help but think about what I'd seen the day before at the Blue Angel. But that thought passed, and a few minutes later we were asleep, me nestled comfortably behind Stephanie, resting my hand on one of her breasts. Dinner was surprisingly serious. We flirted, of course, and Stephanie kept hinting at her plans for me after dessert, but we also really talked. She's so attractive that it's easy to overlook how thoughtful and intelligent Stephanie is, but our conversation reminded me of that. It wasn't long before she asked the $64,000 question, right after we placed our order. "Okay, Jack, spit it out. I'm glad you called, but what's going on?" I smiled. "Can I have an elegant dinner with the most beautiful woman I know?" "What about Carrie?" "Yes, she's attractive too, but—" I said. Stephanie slapped my arm, smiling. "Very funny. Really, what's the big deal? You've kept your distance since I showed interest a couple years ago, so why today?" I told her what I'd seen in Florida and how I felt about it. "It sucks," she said. "I'm sorry, Jack," and I knew she meant it. We spent most of dinner talking about marriage, cheating, and trust. Stephanie had been divorced twice, both times to hot guys who cheated on her, after which she pretty much gave up on marriage, so she was very sympathetic. Over a cup of coffee, she asked, "So what are you going to do?" I smiled. In the short term, I'm going to drive you home and hope you invite me in. She gave me a half smile and gently touched her foot to my leg under the table. After that, I don't know. I think Carrie and I can get through this, maybe. I need to know how serious this affair of hers is, and I have a guy looking into it. But you know what? I think it's time to stop talking about Carrie. I signaled for a check. 5 minutes later, we were walking to the car holding hands. 20 minutes after that, we were already lounging on her couch, and even a little later, we were naked in Stephanie's bedroom. Over the next few days, the smile on my face from the amazing night with Stephanie came and went, alternating with dark thoughts about Carrie and the future of our marriage. The people at work must have noticed something because on Thursday, Dan walked into my office, closing the door behind him and asked, "What?" Sighing, I told him the story. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "Ask me next week," I said. "It depends on what the private investigator finds and what Carrie says. She'll be back Saturday night, so we'll see." Thursday night I spent with Stephanie, and it was just as hot as the first time. I brought Chinese takeout and we fed each other in bed when we weren't fucking. You know what? I told her around midnight when we were sleepily watching Letterman. "I'm having a really good time." "And this is a surprise to you? You asshole." She laughed. "No, that's not what I meant." I kissed her. "Sex with you is fabulous, Stephanie. I mean it. You're an amazing lover." "But you turn me on so much that I didn't immediately notice how much fun I have when we're not fucking. Just talking to you, laughing, watching you dripping Kung Pao chicken on those amazing breasts." I leaned over and licked her, enjoying her shivering. I can't believe no one's bought you yet. You deserve better than me, frankly." She turned off the TV and pulled me to her for a kiss. "You're sweet, Jack, and I had a great time too. But don't minimize yourself. You're a bigger prize than you think. And if Carrie doesn't pull her head out of her ass, women will be lining up to try to make you feel better." "Including you?" I asked. She looked away. "I don't. I've pretty much resigned myself to the fact that I'm not a settled girl, but let's just say I don't know, and leave it at that." We left it at that, both of us realizing that things had gotten very serious. Snuggled up against each other, we kissed some more and fell asleep. And in the morning, Stephanie was light and laughing. We showered together, joked over breakfast, and went our separate ways. Thomas Giardino, a private investigator from Florida, sent me an email Friday afternoon. "Here are our preliminary results. Please read and study the attached files and then call my office. I'll be on site by 6 p.m. I read the report, looked at a half-dozen photos, then called and spoke with Giardino for about 20 minutes. The owner of the Blue Angel was a 34-year-old guy named Roger Dion. He was vice president of sales at a medical supply company and, according to his neighbors, something of a pussy lover. At his house, there was almost always a woman, splashing in the pool, sunbathing on the deck, or even moaning and screaming in his bedroom. And the women never stayed long. Dion apparently liked variety, not monogamy. The private investigator's photos included several shots of Carrie and Dion together, lying by the pool, getting out of the BMW in his driveway, and in one, they were eating together at a table in the back of the house. There was no sex on either of them, though it was obvious she was staying with him. Several people in Dion's entourage recognized Carrie from the photo I provided, but no one could remember if they had seen her before the current week. So what could I conclude? First, Dion was likely a short-term buddy of Carrie's, or at least a recent acquisition. They probably met through work, as Carrie worked in the purchasing department of a hospital in Charlotte and dealt with medical supply companies and their executives on a regular basis. Whether she planned to see him after this week was impossible to say, but he wasn't like a second husband. Since Carrie had gone to see her friend Marjorie about once a year for the past few years, it was likely that old Roger was just my wife's latest fling, not the one and only. She was obviously very careful about her adventures, as I would have had no idea what she was up to if it hadn't been for coincidence and Uncle Tony's binoculars. I was left with a few questions, but not many. Just one major one. What should I do about it? "Baby, I missed you." Carrie kissed me carelessly and hugged me tightly. I kissed her back, then picked up her suitcase and we headed to the airport parking lot with her squeezing my hand tightly. "I hope you have a bottle of champagne for us." Since both Carrie and I traveled periodically for work, or, in her case, to visit my friend Marjorie in Nashville, we had gotten into the habit of celebrating our reunions with champagne in bed, followed by hot sex. Tonight was no exception. She took a quick shower while I unloaded her bags and got the champagne out, and we spent the next couple hours playing in bed. She looked happy and horny as always. For me, however, it was different. Fun, physically satisfying, but a little empty. When we were done, she snuggled up to me, kissed my neck, said, "Thank you, baby, love you," and fell asleep a few minutes later. When Carrie, in her robe and with a sleepy smile, peeked into the kitchen on Sunday morning, I had already made coffee and was just serving scrambled eggs and toast. She hugged me, smiling, then accepted a cup of coffee. We ate in silence, Carrie looking at me affectionately, squeezing my hand from time to time, and I just sat back and watched. After the second cup, when she started to come around, Carrie said, "That was pretty sweet last night, babe. The best part of being away is always coming back when you remind me of what I missed." She smiled at me lovingly. I loved it, but that didn't stop me from saying what I'd been waiting to say for so long. "Do you think, Carrie, I should have used a condom? I mean, since you slept with Roger Dion, do you think we're safe?" A smile froze on her face. "Jack, What? What did you say?" I waited, letting the silence grow. Her face turned very pale and she couldn't bear to look at me. "Roger," I said. "The guy in Florida with the boat. Don't play dumb, honey. It doesn't suit you. Did you use condoms with him? What about the other guys you slept with? I think there were at least 5 or 6. Were you a good girl and did you practice safe sex?" Carrie started to cry. "Jack, it's not, what? Oh my God, baby, I'm so sorry, I didn't. Oh my God." She buried her face in her hands, crying even harder. When she looked up at me, her face stained with tears, I just stared back. "Baby, Jack, I know oh God, I know I did something terrible, but how did you know?" Silence. I wasn't going to answer that question. She looked at me and recoiled at everything she saw. She was crying harder now, blowing her nose into her napkin. I got up from the table. "I'm going to take a shower." When I returned to the kitchen a half hour later, shaved and dressed, Carrie was still sitting at the table, but had already put the dishes away and washed her face. "Honey, I know I owe you an explanation. I know I screwed up, and I love you so much, I just can't." "I'm sorry, Carrie," I said. "Not now. I have to be at Stephanie Prince's house. I think I'll be back for dinner, and then we can talk." "Stephanie Prince?" Her sad face turned puzzled. "Yeah, you remember Stephanie, the real estate agent? The tall one with the red hair? Turns out she's really good at sex, like she likes doing it, you know what I mean?" Carrie looked like pigs just flew in the kitchen window. "Stephanie, are you, having sex with her?" "Well, when I found out our marriage wasn't what I thought it was, I took her up on her offer. We fucked, yeah. So I'll see you at dinner." Stephanie did give a great blowjob, although I wouldn't say it was better than Carrie's. That afternoon in Stephanie's bed, I left what I thought was a pretty good opinion of myself, considering what I had done with Carrie the night before. Then we laid around for a while, eating sandwiches and watching the Carolina Panthers. Around 6, I got up to take a shower, enjoying the sounds from the bedroom where Stephanie was yelling at the judges to throw the damn flag once in a while, huh? When I came out, she said, "Would you like to stay for dinner? We could order Chinese food again, or pizza or something." I smiled. "I'm sorry, but I can't tonight. I told Carrie I'd be home for dinner." Stephanie sat up straight, giving me a great view of her beautiful breasts. "What the fuck? You mean she's back and you're here? Does she know?" "Yeah, she came home last night. I told her all about her boyfriend this morning, and she knows exactly where I am, although I don't think she likes it much." A slow smile appeared on Stephanie's face. "You're a tough son of a bitch, aren't you?" She got out of bed, pulled on a nightgown, and came over to me for a hug. "So what's that supposed to mean?" she muttered. "About us?" I looked at her. "I honestly don't know. There aren't many alternatives, and after tonight, I'll know a lot more. I could get a divorce, and then you would be item #1 on my to-do list." I smiled at her. "Or, I suppose, Carrie and I could arrange an open marriage, given what she's doing. In which case, see above." Or just maybe we could work things out and get back to where I thought we were all along. Stephanie stroked my shoulders, looking at me thoughtfully. I like you a lot, Jack. Both in and out of bed, actually. But I don't think I should be anywhere in the middle of your marriage. That's not what I had in mind when we started playing. I kissed her. I understand. We need to deal with Carrie first. After that, we'll see. But I sure wouldn't mind more of what we've been doing, Steph. Catching her off guard, I grabbed her ass and lifted her into my arms. Squealing, she wrapped her legs around my waist and hugged me, giggling as I kissed her hard again. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. When I entered the house, there was soft music playing, Vivaldi or something like that. I looked into the dining room and saw a table set for two, with serving mats, pretty napkins, and 2 tall candles. Before I could go looking for Carrie, she came in from the kitchen with fried chicken in a large pan. She wore one of her beautiful dresses, much more chic than usual for a quiet dinner at home on the weekend. "There you are," she said in a voice full of contrived cheerfulness. "Dinner is ready, so sit down." A moment later, she returned from the kitchen with 2 more dishes, rice pilaf and spinach. When I sat down, she pulled a bottle of nice white wine from the refrigerator, which we both love, and poured us each a glass. "This looks delicious, Carrie," I said. We drank each glass of wine in silence and ate our dinner without much conversation. There was some talk about innocent things, the latest news from the kids, what happened at my job, but too much was left unsaid, too many topics to avoid. It was tense, and she was clearly enjoying it far less than I was. When she cleared the table and brought out a beautiful apple pie, I suddenly had enough. All day, indeed all week, my mind had been spinning with thoughts. Can my marriage be saved? Do I want to save it? Would I be just as well off if I became a single guy again? Is any future with Stephanie possible? And I realized that, at least in that moment, everything depended on what Carrie had to say, what her story would be and how she would tell it. "So, Carrie, shall we get down to business? What's first? Shall we talk about my day with Stephanie or your week with Roger Dion? Which one of us fucked more? How many more lovers or sex buddies or whatever you call them have spread your legs? Will we have an open marriage or no marriage at all? Where would you like to start?" I caught her off guard. She stared at me, face pale, mouth open. Then she started crying quietly. "Jack, I'm a terrible person." She spoke softly, tears streaming down her face onto the table. "I'm selfish. I'm immature. I'm a liar and a cheat." She looked up at me. "You know that before you, I never had a relationship that lasted even a year. I was always, restless or moody or claustrophobic, always dissatisfied with what I had. And when we, met, when we fell in love and you proposed, I was so happy, so happy. I felt like I'd finally found the right guy and I'd love him to death forever. No more worrying about what else or who else is out there in the world, just one man who made me so happy. Now I was the only one who was surprised. No evasions, no attempts to downplay what she had done, even though I didn't know it all yet. It wasn't what I'd expected. And I was," she continued, "happy, with you, with us, even with me being a stepmother to the kids." She looked at me. "I can't tell you how happy I feel when I think about it. But it hasn't stopped me from continuing to be a selfish, spoiled, cheating bitch. And I know I've ruined everything, and I don't even know what." At this point, she was completely speechless, sobbing convulsively, covering her face with her hands. I waited for her to cry. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to hug her, but a bigger part of me wanted her to feel for herself what she was feeling. The loneliness, the guilt, the fear. She made me feel like shit, and I wanted her to feel like shit. Not very honorable, I guess, but can you blame me? After a few minutes, she started to calm down, to catch her breath. "Why don't you go wash up and we can sit on the deck and talk," I said. When we were seated, I asked, "Do you have any idea what's going to happen next?" She shook her head with a concerned look, and I said, "Actually, so do I. But we'll start with you telling me about it. Not the gruesome details, but who, how much, where, and when. And God damn it, Carrie, if you lie to me even once, even about something as trivial as that, I will throw your fucking ass out of this house." "Okay," she said thinly. "No lies." There were 3. A one-night stand 5 years ago when she'd been visiting Margie and they'd gone dancing at a club in Nashville. They both picked up guys and took them to Margie's for the night. And then 3 years of nothing. Carrie was shocked at herself, terrified of what she had done. But the fright was short-lived. She did it again, got picked up at a bar while she was visiting Margie, and spent the night in a guy's hotel room. It was a married businessman from Los Angeles. After that, according to Carrie, she wasn't so scared anymore. She felt bad. She swore to herself she would never do it again, but she wasn't so scared anymore. The third guy was Roger Dion. It was just as I'd imagined. He met her on business in Charlotte, they flirted, and instead of telling him to fuck off, she let him keep working on her. A few months later, after a few private dinners and a few stolen kisses, she agreed. But she told him that she would absolutely never date him in Charlotte. Eventually, he came up with the idea of having her visit him in Florida. On her last visit with Margie, she flew to Nashville on Saturday, then took a plane to Miami and spent 4 days with Roger before returning to Nashville for the rest of the week. She didn't want to risk flying home directly from Miami and me somehow finding out about it. She swore she had not the slightest intention of seeing him again, and I believed her. No part of this story was meant to be romantic, and the sex, at least in the way Carrie told the story, sounded rather ordinary. Exciting, like a new romance novel, but nothing cosmic. When she finished telling me her story, she leaned back in her chair, looking exhausted. To my surprise, I found that I already had a clear idea of what I wanted. "Good," I said. "Now it's your turn to listen. When I point at you, you're going to say, 'Yes, Jack.' Otherwise, shut your damn mouth, okay, Carrie?" I pointed at her. She nodded, looking startled, then belatedly said, "Yes, Jack. I love you and appreciate our marriage, and I fucking hate what you did. Part of me wants to grab you by the neck and slowly strangle you, watching your face as you die. You shit on me and on our marriage. You betrayed our love, my faith in you, and all the hard work we both did to make our marriage a success. You should be ashamed as hell of yourself. You know that, don't you?" I pointed at her, and she quickly replied, "Yes, Jack," nodding so vigorously that I almost broke out into a smile. "There are only 3 things that can happen, and one of them I've already ruled out," I said. I stood up and started pacing back and forth, watching her face. 1. We can get a divorce. Nice and simple and clean. We'll just say, hasta la vista, and you can move out of this house and spread your legs for any asshole that catches your eye. You can be free to be as restless, selfish, and irresponsible as you want. No need to lie, no need to stomp on anyone's heart. 2nd, we can decide to have an open marriage. There's no point in living up to our marriage vows. They're so outdated and depressing, right? You fuck whoever you like, I fuck whoever I like, Stephanie Prince or whoever. And if we feel like it, we can, from time to time, even have each other. Except that one doesn't work for me. There's no real love, no trust, no connection. It's not the kind of marriage that can make me happy, so I won't do it. Period. That leaves 3. We stay married. We decide that the words we said to each other 12 years ago, the words about leaving everyone else behind, still mean something to us, even after you pissed all over them, and after I spent a few nights in Stephanie's bed. I choose 3rd. She looked scared, but she said it right away. Didn't I say not to tell? Yes, Jack, you did. There's nothing I can do. I choose 3rd. That is, if I have a choice. You haven't said whether you'll give me a vote, but my vote is for 3rd. Okay, I said. I was pleased, but I didn't show it. Now shut up again. The only one who has a vote is me, okay? Say, yes, Jack. Yes, Jack. A tiny glimmer of a smile appeared on her face, and I thought maybe on mine, too. Number 3 means there's a lot to fix, a lot to do. You're getting tested to find out what STDs that asshole passed on to you, and I think I need to get tested, too. I was careful with Stephanie, but even though you say you used condoms, I'll be damned if I'm going to risk it. You're going to start seeing a therapist, and we're going to start seeing a marriage counselor. Honestly, I think it's the former that matters. I don't see how it's our fucking problem, it's your fucking problem. But I'm sure a counselor can help us communicate better, even if it's just so I know when I have to kick your ass before you do something else even 1/8 as stupid. Next, press your feet together. Got it? I pointed at her and she answered, "Yes, Jack." There were tears on her face, but she started to smile. You remind yourself that there is only one guy you flirt with, one guy you kiss or touch, one guy you have, always. And that's me. And if you don't like that, if you think it's too limiting, then we're back to number 1. I looked at her and the smile disappeared. Yes, Jack. Yes, I realized. Yes, absolutely. Good, I said, still pacing, thinking. There might be a few more as we move forward. Things I'll think about later, or things a marriage counselor might suggest. But for now, there are two more. First, Nashville is over. You're never going there again. Carrie's head twitched. She opened her mouth, but then closed it again. Then she nodded and said, Yes, Jack. Your little friend Margie was at the heart of how you messed up our marriage, and that's going to stop. If you want to see her, you can invite her here. And after I fucking tear her ass up, I might even let her stay in the guest room for a night or two. You got it? Yeah, Jack. She said it before I even looked at her. And I'm sorry, you're absolutely right about Margie and, about all of this. Now for the last thing, I keep seeing Stephanie. Not all the time, but every now and then. When I feel like it, dinner, sex, whatever, until I decide I've had enough, or you've had enough. Say it. I pointed at her. Yes, Jack. Her face was pale, and the tears had returned to her eyes. Not very pleasant, is it? Thinking about me with her? That gorgeous body, those long legs wrapped around me. Are we sleeping or just kissing? Maybe just lying there, whispering sweet nothings to each other. No, Jack. It doesn't feel good. It hurts. It really hurts. And I know why you say that, and you're right. So I say yes, Jack. She was crying a little bit, but she held my gaze. And I'm so sorry for being a selfish idiot, and for hurting you so badly. She broke down sobbing again, and this time I went over and hugged her, still angry, but loving her warmth and softness. She hugged me tightly, crying, and finally said, You haven't told me your decision yet, but I'm still in favor of the third, with all your conditions. Good. That's my vote, too. Number 3. Carrie was sound asleep next to me, snoring softly. I was still awake, brooding, but feeling good. The evening ended with a long lovemaking session. When the blood test results come back, and not a day before, until then, you'll just have to suck me off. I felt surprisingly optimistic about my marriage. Perhaps part of it was just a certain degree of maturity. At 41, my reaction to her cheating was stronger than the mere blind rage I might have felt at 25. As I told you at the beginning of this story, I know Carrie loves me. She's messed up, but she loves me. So if we can do something about the part that's messed up, maybe we can make it work. I didn't think I would be dating Stephanie for very long. The sex was great, and I liked her a lot, but I couldn't see how that could keep me from repairing my marriage to Carrie. Nevertheless, the possibility itself seemed like good leverage to me, and I did enjoy licking Kung Pao chicken off Stephanie's breasts.